So we're not too far away from an upgraded iPhone 14 Pro in the form of a 15 Pro. But since having this since launch, I recently covered the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and I thought about discussing the iPhone 14 Pro with you since I've actually quite liked this phone as well. And even though a lot of phones have launched since this device has come out, it still remains one of my favorite on the market today. And I'm explaining to you my long-term honest review of the iPhone 14 Pro. So when it comes to the design and the build, iPhone is starting to become it kind of feels like it's an appliance to me. You know, it blends in with everyday life, but it's a premium appliance, if you will. It's a premium product. And every time I pick it up, I still get a sense of this thing just feels really beautiful to hold. And while we do have a lot of other phones out there that are also coming with beautiful designs, there's something about the flat edges, just the crisp lines to this phone, even the dynamic island, although it is, not my favorite, it still has, its own unique flair to it. So when I use this phone and I pick it up, it actually still feels more premium than about 95% of the rest of the market. The only thing feeling a little more premium, I feel like, is the 14 Pro Max. And maybe you could argue some Samsung phones are maybe slightly more premium in some elements. But overall, the size to weight ratio, the heft with the stainless steel on here, it just has a nice feel to it. So long term, since launching this phone, I like how this one feels very similar to the 13 Pro and that it still retains that beautiful build, that beautiful body, but you can put it in a size that's more comfortable in the hand. So this phone, long term, I absolutely love it. Now, I will tell you that the dynamic island is something that I still kind of look at. Even though I've had this since it launched, I still look at the dynamic island quite a bit. I also find that it's a little bit more prominent on the iPhone 14 Pro. Like it's just more in your face because there's less screen area below that dynamic island. In addition to that, we do have camera bumps that are kind of thick on this phone, and I think they might get thicker on the next phone. Maybe they'll get thinner because Apple's rumored to make the phone thicker. We'll have to see. The deep purple colorway is not quite the purple I thought it was going to be, but it's still got a kind of a grayish hue in certain lights. Like if I look at it, like it looks black right there in this lighting, in certain angles, it's just not purple. So if you're a true purple fan, the deep purple iPhone 14 Pro is not the most purpley phone out there. It's literally a deeper purple. Now, the charging port down there is still a lightning port. So, I literally earlier today, I was trying to stick a USB-C plug in here. I was like this, and it didn't go. And I was like, you know what? That is something they need to upgrade. We need to go to USB-C. It would definitely be quite nice. Now, another thing I want to talk about is the silent switch. I know it's something very minimal, but besides OnePlus phones, I still kind of like using this, even though this is such an old feature on the iPhone. It's just still quite nice. Now, the iPhone 14 Pro, when it comes to its display quality, is absolutely tremendous. But there is a caveat. Now, this phone has been incredibly bright. It's the easiest phone I've ever seen outdoors. Even the current Samsung phones hit 1750. This hits 2000 nits of brightness. So the brightness on this phone is actually superseding that of the Galaxy device. So it's actually brighter. Now, the calibration of the display is pretty similar to when you throw an Android phone into like a natural color mode with a little bit more punch. So Apple has like a slight more saturation over a natural mode, I would say, on like a Galaxy phone. So it's kind of got a nice mix between a natural feel and a saturated look. So the iPhone 14 Pro really giving you kind of the best of both worlds. And it actually should, because there is no way to tweak this display. Now, the 120 hertz panel experience on here, the ProMotion, is absolutely butter. Now, the reason why is because when you combine the efficiency of iOS, you combine the A16 processor in here, and you combine the fact that Apple is controlling everything around the board, I have not seen a phone that still has outshined the iPhone in the level of polish. Now, you've seen in my recent speed test that when I open up applications, just the buttery smooth look when we go through things. This is an area where Android phones could still improve. While they are very fast and even in some cases way more snappier looking on that initial launch, when it comes to swiping out with the gestures and stuff, iPhone still has the smoothest, most polished look. So even though this can be boring to some people, the iOS experience, I say boring because it's not boring to everybody. Some people like using their AirPods, using their iPads and their iPhones and their Macs, and it all just works together. So for those people, it's not boring. But for those people who think it's boring, at least we can say, if we're iPhone users, we can say that we enjoy, this super smooth, polished look. But I will say, I think I've tried the Xiaomi 13 Pro. I think the MIUI, even though it's not everybody's favorite, is actually quite polished as well in terms of the animations. Now, the software itself is a little messy, but that's the one I find to be quite close with the animation look and speed. Also, Google Pixel is right up here with iPhone, but Samsung needs to do some work, and some other phone makers as well aren't quite as smooth with the animations. But I find OnePlus phones to be even faster when launching applications. But on the whole, you really can't go wrong with this display. Incredibly bright, great size. It's like a 6.1 inch. We have night shift, dark mode, and there's not a lot of phones. Here's another kicker about the 14 Pro. There's not a lot of phones at this price range, or not this price range, this is a higher price phone for 6.1. There's not a lot of phones at this size range that's like super premium, like top of the line. Not a lot of them at this price range. So you can get the Galaxy S23 Plus, which is pretty darn close, but that phone is, that's a bigger phone. Dude, you got to go with the S23, which some people think is better than this phone. Not quite as, powerful CPU wise, but definitely I think the 14 Pro is kind of the king of this 6.1 inch size in terms of the most premium device at that size that you can get. Now, talking about software, Apple has given me a little bit of trouble over my several months of usage. Not too much, but a little bit of trouble. And that means that some applications have crashed on me here and there, but overall, we've seen pretty darn good performance, on the day-to-day. It's really, it's not the worst. We could see worse performance on this, but honestly, I've just had a few app crashes, some buggy software here and there. It doesn't usually happen when I'm trying to show you stuff on camera, but honestly, it hasn't been as smooth and refined as I've seen in prior iOS versions. And, we hold iOS to a high standard because it usually is like a flawless performer. But this time around, I have found several apps to have crashed. So that was earlier on. These days, though, in the latest versions of iOS 16.4.1, we even got a rapid security response lately. The actual performance has improved. It has gotten better. I will say that. So overall, this software still got so many years left of updates. It's pretty darn good. I just want to see Apple do a little bit more with the split screen, maybe give us something like that. Give us some more features on here. I think it's getting a little bit stale. We need to see a little bit more with iOS 17, which is right around the corner. Performance-wise, there's no way to tweak animations on here. So you can go through these applications very fast, but you're not going to be able to change the animation speed besides, you can reduce motion and stuff like that. But honestly, do you really need to? Look how fast this phone is. It's blazing fast. Even while the app's coming out, you could actually bring it out before it comes out of that application faster than it can even open. So it's insane, like how fast this phone is. The Apple A17, not available for this phone, should be even faster. But A16 Bionic with 6 gigs of RAM has been stellar. It really has, even though it's mostly an A15 chip, slightly better, it definitely has been stellar. And one of the things I really like about the 14 Pros is that when you're really running like games, videos, going between a lot of stuff, it can handle all the heat that you bring to it. And this phone rarely gets hot. So definitely really good there. I do think some of the Galaxy S23 models do a little bit better with heat management, but it rarely gets hot. I don't find it getting too hot. I mean, if you're in the sunlight, you got this one on the dash, definitely might get a little too hot, but really most of the time it's incredibly cool and very comfortable to hold, even when you're running through more power heavy tasks that you would do on your smartphone. So performance, rock solid. Storage on the iPhone 14 Pro is available with up to around 1 terabyte, no more than that. But That's pretty good. Now I got me the 256 gigs. I've already used 157 gigabytes on this phone, which is most of it. So as we go on, we're going to need more storage variants. But the only thing I don't like about this phone is that the extra storage tiers really jack the price up on this phone for, I feel like, no reason. Like, it shouldn't be that much more for some more storage, but you are going to pay several $100s more when you go to, say, a 128 gig to a 512 or even a 1 terabyte. You're looking at $400 or $500 more for that same smartphone. So storage comes at a big premium on this phone, but this NVMe storage is incredibly fast, wicked, just blazing quick. So storage is pretty solid. Now, so let's talk about the camera. The camera, here's the thing. The only thing, wow, can't even tap a camera today. The only thing I really noticed that kind of bugged me a little bit with this camera, it didn't bug me because I understand how these cameras work, but it's just a little bit more pro. Well, it's definitely more pro. If you come out of the macro mode, for example, look at like things are out of focus, you're gonna have to leave it there. My wife actually had this phone and she wanted to return to the 13 simply because she wanted to go ahead and have a better, focusing on the camera. So basically with the 13, it's more of a standard iPhone camera. Everywhere you point, it's best focus as possible. With this, you kind of have a little bit of a further focusing distance on the 14 Pro. And so you got to step back, just bring the phone back just a little bit to nail that shot every time. Once you do, it's your typical iPhone quality. It's super good, super smooth. And one of the things I am super missing when I use the 14 Pro is a zoom. They just need more zoom, straight up, on the iPhone. 15X is not cutting it. It's a solid amount, but it's not cutting it. Like, it doesn't go far enough, I feel like, for somebody who's really into photography. And on video, you can definitely hit up to 9X, which is not super far either. What I really love about this camera is 4K 60, 4K 24, just all the modes, and the video is phenomenal on the iPhone 14 Pro. Long-term review of it, I don't even crave. I literally do not crave a better camera. There's more zoom I would like, but these things feel like little jumps that really don't really enhance, my life too much, or maybe even your life, depending on what you're doing with your smartphone. But if you're really into zooming, there are other options out there. And if you wait for the 15 models and you really want zoom, if you want it, the zoom, then that's going to be the main thing, because the camera itself is pretty darn amazing. Another thing I feel like they could do a little bit better is, sharper photos on that zoom. So again, we're talking about the zoom, but just when you start getting past their optical, this just gets really noisy on the iPhone 14 Pro. This is not a great example, but I start to see a lot more noise on photos where I zoom all the way in. So I just want to see more zoom. That's the main thing that I'm missing on here. 8K would be nice. If Apple wants to put 8K on an Ultra iPhone, that would be a luxurious extra touch, but it's not really necessary. The front-facing camera is incredible on the iPhone 14 Pro. It's one of my favorite reasons to use these models, because these models do really represent the best of the best, I feel like, when it comes to nailing the skin tone, when it comes to giving you that type of photo, that type of video that you're looking for to just kind of match up, with reality, essentially. Like the rear camera, the front camera, they match up amazing. And for those reasons, long term, I gotta say, this camera probably on my high list as one of the main options I'm gonna grab. I'm gonna even grab it over my main camera for just everyday photography and videography when out and about. Something that's overlooked is how good the speakers are.
Display that is promotion here. And you don't gotta pay for an iPhone 14. That makes this a steal still.
So the iPhone 14 Pro has incredible speakers when it comes to audio. So if you want to listen to music, whatever you want to do, it's incredibly solid on here for the iPhone 14 Pro. So do keep in mind that if you do want to pick this up and you're looking for really good speaker audio, it's great. Also, Bluetooth connects fast and all that jazz. It's all really good connectivity on here. Arguably competing very well now with Samsung when it comes to the reception strength and stuff like that. Now, battery life, 3200 milliamp hour battery in here, 15 wireless watt MagSafe charging. And this does have the ability to charge again via Lightning, not the fastest out there. They can really go to town improving that on this. This phone for me is a day phone with medium to getting close to heavy use. When I start heavy using this, I'm not able to make the full day on this phone. I do need to throw it on the charge at some point. With the iPhone 14 Pro Max, I'm going into the second day, still running, but not quite on the iPhone 14 Pro with my type of usage. My type of usage is heavy camera, high brightness. I also do a lot of internet research, stuff like that, business tasks, things like that. I'm really heavy on the phone, and this one for me needs a charge before bed. But the iPhone 14 Pro Max can definitely outdo this one. So the Face ID, on here is still nice. We still like that. Dynamic Island, I haven't talked much about it in this video. I talked about it earlier, but I don't want to harp on about it because it's kind of just fades in the background. We get calls, we get certain things here and there that pop up there, but it's kind of faded in the background. It definitely reminds me though that I'm on the latest phone. So that is something if you care about stuff like that, but it really hasn't been life-changing feature for me. Long term, I'm gonna wrap it up here with the iPhone 14 Pro. Honestly, we're getting super close to the 15 Pro, and I wanted to give this one last cover before we start getting into iOS 17, before we compare this to the iPhone 15 Pro. Should you buy it now? If you have that question, I would say wait to the 15 Pro unless you need an absolute flagship this minute. But still, I don't think anything has really knocked this phone off. It's where it's at. Like, I still think people would choose other devices that are cheaper, that are giving them premium specs just to save some cash. But in terms of being top of the line, Apple is still holding that area. They're still holding that premium segment down pretty good with the iPhone 14 Pro. So it's still playing in the big leagues right here. Even though it's not, foldable device, it's not game changing. It has super high brightness, super amazing video, great social media content creation tool, very good software, long support, blazing fast CPU, probably the most premium feeling phone at this size range you can hold in your hand. Not a lot of things are touching this phone out there. So definitely really good. Thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you all in the very next episode. Thank you very much for watching. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.